Wilf Zaha now going to play his football in Turkey for Galatasaray. Michael Elise said that he's all but through the door at Stamford Bridge. He'll be a Chelsea player sooner than later. What's going to happen with Eze? Is he going to be out the door as well? It all leads to us questioning where Palace actually are going into this season now. Is it now okay to question the club's ambition? Paul's a big Palace fan. Paul, good morning.
Hello, how are we doing, guys?
Good morning.
Thanks so much for joining us. So what's your take on this? What's going on at Crystal Palace?
Right, I'm going to be honest with you. I have thought for the last 4 or 5 years that Steve Parish has become an absolute clown. I really do. He has gone on interviews saying we're the bottom 9 in revenue. We've got, a great academy and everything else. Let me just point something out. When you bring in a manager for 1 year, okay, and you go after players which you're not getting, and you're selling players, it stinks of no stability. How can you want to sign for a club that is going to have a manager for 1 year and when you look back at Vieira, he was the 5th choice manager because everyone rejected the club. So when you go forwards, where is it going forward? At least, if you thought that Elise was that good, you should have done what other, clubs have done with their stars, and then add another 10 million onto their release clause. You should have, kept him for an extra year.
How would you do that, Paul? How would you do that, Paul? I'm not going to defend Steve Parish for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But let's be fair and equitable. You sign him, you get him out from Reading on a release clause of 8 million. You stick him on a release clause because he comes to sign for Palace. We put him on a release clause of 35 million quid. Unless you've got the players buy-in to changing his contract, what are you suggesting that Parish could have done differently?
I mean, it's a really good point, and you know your stuff, and I've got a lot of respect for you from what you did for the club. And the thing is for me is that, with Elise, he's a fantastic talent. We all know he is. But you give him that, what would you like? What would you like to get this contract going? But we have this, scenario where we have all these players, but we don't ask them, what do you want? What exactly do you want? I don't believe, from what I understand, Eze's got a release clause in his contract.
Well, then he won't be going anywhere.
Well, he won't be going anywhere for cheap.
Then he won't be going anywhere, will he?
But will he though?
Well, if someone comes along and pays £100 million, which they won't, but if someone came along and prized him out of Palace's hands, then you can't say it's a lack of ambition. It's the commercial reality of the world that we live in. It's no different than Caicedo being sold by Brighton. It's all about quantum and scale. And whilst I would, I'm not going to defend Parish. For me, he's a 1. But the point is, you guys have got to look at the body of work over 10 years. You've got to look at the fact that Palace have been in the Premier League. I couldn't do that. I couldn't sustain Palace in the Premier League, and neither could Nosey. So Parish and his little gang have got together and they bought a club that stayed in the Premier League for 10 years. The biggest challenge for me, and where you can probably park your tanks on his lawn, is an inability, it would seem, with all due respect to Roy Hodgson, to get a progressive manager that's going to build a football club that's capable of overachieving, that's capable of developing players that can actually benefit the football club on the pitch and economically. And that's where you should be targeting your guns if you want to have a go at Steve Parish.
Okay, listen, I take your point, but let me ask you a question then. If you were a player, okay, and it might even apply to Danny. If you were a player and you got an offer from Crystal Palace and you had a few options, and then you looked at it and Steve Parish or whoever was, the director of football, Dougie Freeman and everything like that, turned around and said, right, we've got this model, okay, but we've got a manager who is going to be there for 1 year.
Well, I'll interrupt you because I know where you're going with it.
Short-termism, he's saying. In other words, Paul, you're saying short-termism in the dugout doesn't help.
You brought this point up at the beginning, and it's a really good point, because the majority of players, not all, by the way, not all, but the majority of players who care about their future and care about the relationship with the manager would choose another more stable option. You are right, because there's nothing worse as a player where there's a temporary manager or a manager for a year, and you think in another year another manager come in might not fancy me.
Yeah, but that's not how it. Again, I don't want to be seen to be defending.
Thank you for your call, though. Thank you.
But that's not accurate. Because
it is now. It's relevant now.
Hang on, it's not accurate because when they employed Patrick Vieira, they didn't put him on a 1-year contract, did they?
No.
They ultimately Patrick Vieira and his coaching staff blew up, right? And ultimately before that, Palace, because he's talking about a body of work over years, not just this instantaneous moment. You had Roy Hodgson for 3 years, so there has been this stability in managerial appointments. They just haven't been ones that have progressed the football club the way that Palace fans think they should. And now the fact that players are being sold, Wilfred has run his course. You can't argue with the fact the boy's been there for 8 years. He's been paid a fortune by Palace, but at the same token, he's done a good job for them and everything's worked. He's gone. And Elisi's gone on a release clause, and now people are going to start making up a conspiracy theory that Ezzy's out the door. If Ezzy's out the door, it's because Palace will sell him for top money. Guaranteed, there's no parallel universe that Palace are going to let that boy go for anything other than top money, and that top money will prove a deterrent. Because the problem that Palace have always had is these clubs seem to be able to cherry-pick Palace players for 30 million quid. But when it comes to paying top money for Palace players, it seems there's a resistance. When Zaha was up for grabs and Arsenal wanted him, Palace would have sold him for 60 million quid. Arsenal went, Palace player, Zaha, not paying 60 million quid for him. And that's the part where Palace seem to have not been able to square a circle about capitalising on some of their players and then utilising that money to get different players in the club. They bought Ed, the boy that we saw at Celtic a couple of years ago.
Edward, yeah. The fact is, Simon, they shouldn't be thinking about selling Ezzy at all.
I don't suppose they are.
Not
but everyone's got a price, Jim.
I don't suppose they are, but other people are thinking of buying him. I mean, Palace can't legislate for that, can they? They can't send them out a mind block saying, don't think about buying our players. If a certain club wants to buy them, it's incumbent upon Palace to react. That's all they can do. Now, Palace can rock in the door and they can start the thought process in the player's mind by saying, actually, we want to put you on a new contract with a bigger release clause. The player's going to go, hang on a second, why would you be doing that now? Oh, I know, because someone's interested in me.
Yeah.
And there is a dynamic. Whichever way Palace go at this moment in time, they will go wrong in certain people's eyes.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.